Welcome to Young Asia Television.
Hello, our guest today is Dr. Rajesh Tandon, who is an internationally acclaimed leader in participatory development research. He spent 35 years in civil society, working and researching both in India as well as in, at global level. You also founded the Society for Participatory Research in Asia, or PRIA, and co-founded CIVICUS, the World Alliance of Citizen Participation. Dr. Tandon, you gave an interesting, well-attended talk in Colombo on your visit. You've been coming here for 30 years. On this visit, you gave an interesting talk where you said there are two spaces. So I want to start off with that. There are two spaces for acting in the public interest. One is the political space, and the other is the civil space. And you identified how these two intersect or not. Can we start off with that?
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. My visits to Sri Lanka are always quite interesting in terms of meeting old friends and making new ones. I have been working in the citizen action arena, civic space, civil society space all my life. And in so doing, one of the questions we have always in front of us is how do we influence the formal political system, which, as you know, in India has been formally at least democratically functioning at the three tiers of governance. We have the national, we have the provincial or state, and the local. And most of the time we have engaged with the political parties, the members of parliament, ministers, around issues of our interest or concern. And we have engaged with them directly, but also we have engaged with them through media, through public action. In our context, the rules of the game for formal political process, which I call politics with a capital P, are such that you are unable to enter that realm at the national and provincial level unless you belong to a political party. However, the space for formal participation in elected party politics at local level, at the level of municipalities and panchayats, is still reasonably party free. So a lot of civil society activists, social activists, citizen leaders have become elected as panchayat leaders, as mayors, all over the country. Of course, the larger the municipality, when you come to Delhi Municipal Corporation or Mumbai Municipal Corporation, political parties find their stakes and get in there. So the biggest sort of question that we have faced, and this time's election sort of reinforced that in some way, is how do you penetrate that formal political party system? While the space for political action and civic action overlaps, the institutional mechanisms seem to be unwilling to overlap. And
right. So what do you do? I mean, are these parallel tracks that never meet, or do they intersect?
No, they intersect. They intersect. For example, even in this election, PRIA, with a large network of civil society actors, has been focusing on urban poverty and rights of the poor in city, urban housing, right to secure housing, livelihood, etc. So we, in 6-7 provinces and in Delhi, we had dialogues with party leaders, cutting across all party leaders, where community leaders from urban poor associations, which we help enable, and some of us would have a dialogue and say, look, why don't you pay attention to this? Why is it not in your agenda? Why is it not in your manifesto? And then after the face-to-face dialogue, we'll use the media and we will provide them with briefings. And we are not the only ones who do this. There are other formats. Somebody does it for environment, somebody does it for women's rights. It goes on. This has been a fairly common practice for 15 years, mid-90s onwards.
Right. But what's new, as you've identified, is the sporadic, spontaneous people's movements or mass protests, for example, against corruption or against incidents of rape, that galvanize the hitherto unengaged section of the population without having formal structures.
Yeah.
Where does that fit in?
Well, that's a phenomena of last 7-8 years. I was personally quite taken aback with the demonstration that happened in 2008 after Mumbai attacks in November. And basically the same sort of phenomena repeated itself in India against corruption movement with Anna Hazare's leadership. What has changed, I think, is that there is a generation of young people who sort of born around 90s, who are come of age, who become, by 2008 they are 18. There has been a bit of campaign amongst them to say, you are a voter, exercise your voting right. Prior to that, urban middle class voting percentages were abysmal in India. In urban areas, it's only the poor, the slum fellows and the lower middle class, but the urban middle class very rarely, like 10%, 15% voting percentage, while for other sections will be 60%.
Even in national elections?
Even in national election.
Right.
Even in national election. And much worse in municipal elections, go down the line. So this has begun to change from 2008 onwards. And we saw some of that change in 2009 parliamentary elections and certainly 2014. Now this spontaneity is, first of all, it is being driven by young people. It is being driven by young people, and it is being driven by use of technology, SMS in particular, and a bit of social media and internet and all. It is also being driven by a sense of dignity, sort of feeling that I matter. I matter. I should be treated with respect or dignity. And yes, I have some things and I don't have other things, but I want other things with dignity. I don't want to come and kneel in front of you and say, you are my annadata, or please help me or feed me and all that.
Right.
So this, for the young generation, this is a very different from our generation.
Does it cut across urban and rural youth?
It does cut across now.
Interesting.
Because of the penetration of media. Last 10 years we have had an exploration of electronic media from all language groups, and so television, radio, and substantial growth in vernacular press, daily newspapers in mother tongue. So there has also been a simultaneous rise in literacy levels. Okay, so those who are 18 today, a large percentage of them have been to at least primary school, 89-90%.
Right.
If you take the overall literacy rate and you exclude those who are above 25, it's close to 90% now. So for this generation, access to information, both from traditional means and modern means, is there. So now, for them, there is a common sense of being together, if only virtually, whether you are in Delhi or you are in a village 100 miles away.
Right. So we have these two key factors. The demographics, a very large
Right.
youthful population, and the rolling out of communications technologies, particularly mobile phones, 900 million and
Yes,
counting. These two factors were also what fueled the Arab Spring
That's right.
in another part of the world.
Yes.
But here we've seen a different dynamics when these factors come together. For example, the Common Man's Party or Aam Aadmi was a result of the larger anti-corruption struggle. What happened with them?
Well, you're very right, because in terms of demographics, as I mentioned, median age in India is 24. So that means nearly 620 million people are below 24. And as a result, they are coming in and using their sense of angst in forms of protest which are spontaneous, which are not centrally orchestrated by a party high command or whatever, and which are basically demanding action, not rhetoric. So if you see what happened in anti-corruption movement, and then the huge mobilization that took place when that girl Nirbhaya was raped in Delhi, all over the country, spontaneously. Nobody sort of orchestrated a nationwide campaign, but people felt that this was a violation of their own sense of dignity and respect. And so when they came on the streets in Delhi, they did not want the police there. They wanted Prime Minister or Home Minister to come and talk to them. So they wanted direct engagement, in a way, with the political space. And it was stupid for the security agencies to say it is unsafe for Home Minister to go and meet them. The moment you said that, they got even more angry. Well, you mean we are unsafe? We are voters, we are your citizens, we put you there. Why can't you talk to us? And you have to see that in the backdrop of all these gun-toting black commandos surrounding all our political leaders and all for the last 10, 15 years. And people are put off with all that. Red lights, security cars, caravan of 20 cars stopping traffic, causing havoc on the streets of Delhi.
Oh, we are very familiar with all that.
So all that has created this sense of angst. So when the debate in Parliament on the Lokpal bill did not seem to go far enough,
the anti-corruption
bill, the ombudsman bill, and there seemed to be a coalition of interest among all political parties, irrespective of their color, then a large section of the movement decided that we must convert ourselves into a formal political party. And that's how Aam Aadmi Party was born.
Right, but opinion was divided there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anna Hazare felt that entering the political mainstream wasn't the way forward, whereas his colleague Arvind Kejriwal felt it should be the way forward. So there was a parting of ways, at least in operational terms.
This debate has been there for quite some time. Every time the country faced a particular juncture, you may recall the emergency in India, and then the JP movement, and a large number of young students who participated in Jayaprakash Narayan's movement. It was called Movement for Total Revolution, and many of them then were disappointed with Janata Party and parted company and formed civil society organizations in 78, 79, 80, 81. So this was the second time, and I think those two positions are reflective of two different extremes. I think Anna and a group of people were saying that you would lose moral authority if you become a party, and the system of party functioning in today's context requires money and all this, access to communication and media and all that it may not work. And those who said that no, we must form a party, were basically saying we want to form a party to influence the political culture and the way parties and elected representatives function. So both had a logic. Now, if you then take the first round of elections, the assembly elections, so Kejriwal's logic seemed to work for Delhi assembly elections.
Right.
They won 28 out of 70 seats, and then with support from Congress, Kejriwal became the Chief Minister of Delhi.
Yep.
Now, it worked for two reasons there. Firstly, it was a limited territory. Secondly, as part of the anti-corruption work, Kejriwal and many of his colleagues had done quite a bit of work on the ground for 8, 9 years, 10 years preceding, from early 2000, 2001 to on PDS, access to subsidized food grain, the exorbitant charge of electricity, lackadaisical supply of water, the problems of three-wheelers and rickshaw pullers. So they had a track record of direct activism with the lower middle class in Delhi.
So would you say, looking at what happened in the national elections recently, that did AAP, the Aam Aadmi Party, give a bad name for civil society movements?
Basically, two things happened. One is the moment this Aam Aadmi Party was formed, because some of the front faces of that were people who came from civil society or academia, and basically people who have been active in citizen communities, civic action, that space. The competitive political parties already started. You may remember our Prime Minister even gave a statement then Prime Minister in February 2012 saying foreign funding is stopping nuclear plant in Tamil Nadu and mines in Odisha. And
the famous foreign hand.
The famous foreign hand from US, of course, and Scandinavian countries. And this was the first time a Prime Minister had said that. Yes, lower level ministers or officials would always harass civil society, but this is top of the political pyramid, so to speak. And so a lot of that sort of formal politics began to separate the civil society which was entering the formal political space and targeting them. That you want to play game with formal politics, then show us your account, all this, basic harassment tendencies.
Right.
The second thing, lesson that comes out of this is that the movement from civic space to political space in a country of the diversity of India can only be localized first.
That's a key lesson.
Key lesson.
Right.
Because that's where your social capital is. That's where your civic action has roots. You cannot generalize civic action just as you can generalize political party. And this is, so they did very well in Delhi and Punjab. They got 4 seats in Punjab. They came second in all the 7 seats of Delhi, I think, because of the kind of campaign Mr. Modi did and the support he got. The party lost its possibilities, but also lost its possibilities because Kejriwal resigned as Chief Minister. So the question there was, the second lesson, big lesson is that if you enter former political parties and that space of governance, you better be prepared to govern.
Agitation is one, governance is another.
Quite another.
Right.
Because then you cannot be on the street. You can be on the street part of the time, but you have to sit on the chair, you have to sit with officials, you have to sit with bureaucracy, you have to sit with police system, business people will come and talk to you because there are investment issues.
It's a whole different ball game.
Whole different ball game. And as soon as they became government in Delhi, because they were not very disciplined political party, different members started making, media was chasing them. So instead of keeping quiet, they were making statements. One of them said, we don't want foreign direct investment. They immediately lost support of all the business community. Because they said, this is never discussed. How can you take a stand? Who are you? Somebody gave a speech oh, we need a plebiscite in Kashmir. The whole hell break loose in security agencies saying, why is a respectable face of Aam Aadmi Party is telling the media that we need plebiscite?
Right, so there were missteps like that. But basically trying to relate this whole experience to our situation, we are much smaller in terms of scale.
Yeah.
The diversity is less. How would Sri Lanka or countries that are smaller but trying to improve our own democratic governance, what can we learn from this recent experience of civil society trying to engage the political process in India? If you were to sum it up.
I would say that the first and more frontal sort of engagement is for these movements to be articulating their concerns or questions or demands directly with political system, which means with members of parliament, with party sort of ideologues, because in all parties there are some who are ministers or there are some who are behind the scene. We have learnt through this process that there are some, all parties have some intellectuals. We may disagree with them, but these movements must articulate their demands and concerns and questions with them. And this is where the role of media becomes important, because how would they demand? They are not a formal organization, they won't, so they will at best do a petition, electronic petition or something. But how does that petition get visibility in public space? And that's where media can play a very important role, because in India, media did play a very important role in projecting what these movements or spontaneous activities of citizens were implying. So they would sort of call a sort of a panel session, and they would have one of the voices from the protest movement in the field asking a question, and 2-3 political leaders sitting and responding with an anchor person mediating. This sort of helped the voice to be heard, as well as response to be demanded or solicited.
Right. Our time is almost up, but I want to ask you one question. You've had the right to information law for almost a decade, and you've identified that as a key empowering piece of legislation. Yeah. Very quickly, what did it mean for you in civil society?
Basically, we share the same Official Secrecy Act of the colonial heritage. So right to information has given us the possibility to demand information on government policies, programs, expenditures, budgets, and because the Act is now a decade old, there are also information commissioners whom we can go for appeal. Gradually, the information commissioners are also coming from civil society or law profession and not just bureaucrats.
Right. So it's fully operational.
It is fully operational.
Working.
Of course, given the nature of India's plurality and diversity, it operates well in one state for 2-3 years, then it goes down.
Sure. So, but what did it mean for civil society as a whole?
I think it opened up the government. And if we want to talk about accountability in a democratic process, then some amount of transparency is essential. So right to information basically gave information, access to information. And in a way, if you look at last 10 years since then, there is now a reasonably robust participatory democracy process, which is citizen-led, and there is a formal democratic process. Where the two work together, in certain states you see progressive results. Where they conflict and go at each other head-on, confrontation results, things slow down for a while, but I think they learn to figure out. So right to information is fundamental. Right to be heard, it's like right to be heard. You may disagree, but at least listen to me. And this is what the right to information provides.
That's all part of the engagement.
Exactly. It becomes a scaffolding for engagement.
Right. Dr. Rajesh Tandon, thank you very much. You've inspired us, and we have a lot to aspire to looking at the Indian example. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.